Japan and a sub-series that we try to do once a month called Sustainable Short Takes. So we're looking at sustainable issues and trends in Japan and talking about things that have been on our radar. I'm JJWalsh here in Hiroshima, Japan, and
Hi, I'm Tove Kinooka and I'm in Yokohama, just outside Tokyo.
now we have so many great things to talk about today. Should we just dive right in, Tova?
Let's do it. Let's do it. There's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about.
Mhm.
Let's talk about first about your Sustainability Leadership Lab. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we're very excited about this because it's our first ever B2C offering. So it's an open program, 6 months. Anybody can join as long as you're somebody working in a sustainability role in an organization. So it's a little bit different. There are a lot of great sustainability programs out there that look at the processes, at the sort of building knowledge and understanding, which is really, really important. The idea with this is it's to look at the people side of sustainability transformation, which is often one of the biggest challenges, right? Companies spend a lot of time on their strategy, getting the processes right, and then they're like, right, let's go. But things just don't move because people outside the sustainability team don't know what this means for them, how to move it into daily practice in their own function or role. So the idea of this is we help the sustainability team, the people from there, actually understand, okay, how do we work with different stakeholders in our organization to overcome these blockers so that we can embed it throughout the organization and really get things shifting. So we've got really cool lineup of speakers from companies like IKEA and LIXIL. We've got people based in the UK and Korea as speakers as well. So we're really looking forward to getting this up and off the ground.
Yeah, awesome. It looks like we're having trouble with the chat. I was trying to share the link for what we're looking at, but I will share the links below. So
Yeah.
not to worry, we can share that later.
Yeah.
And then you are doing coming up this month training for young people, and I just did it last week as well. So maybe I'll start, and then you can
Yeah.
follow. Is that okay?
Fantastic. Yeah. Go
Okay.
for it.
So I was working with Hiroshima Tourism Association, and we had the chance to work with junior high school and high school students in Hiroshima. And they came from all over, and I taught them a little bit about like the foundations of doing online guiding tours because this really is the future of the
Mm.
industry. We don't know what's coming after COVID. We don't know what natural disasters might be happening, or war or political unrest.
Yeah.
Also, there's people who can't travel because of disabilities. So we are seeing such a big trend in online
Hmm.
guiding and
Yeah.
online tours. And so this was a great chance to meet up with these young people and give them kind of a foundation of the kinds of things that I've been doing that visitors find really interesting. And then they take that foundation, those stories, those like very key narratives.
Hmm.
And then as we're walking around doing the guided tour, I try to challenge them to add their own insights and their
That's
own
great.
stories and
Hmm.
stuff. And so it was so wonderful and rewarding. It's been years since I've worked with junior high school and high school students. They were all just so fantastic. And I
Hmm.
really have such a great positive feeling about the future,
Yeah.
not only of tourism, but of entrepreneurship, of
Yeah.
young people who are interested in international relations, international communication,
Yeah.
So that was great.
Fantastic. And I think that it's really wonderful that you're introducing this concept to a new generation as well. So it's not just, the older people, or maybe our generation, who are interested in traveling and learning about the world, right? So if you can get them connecting with other people in their generation in other countries who are interested to learn more about, Hiroshima or different regions, then, that's really fantastic to build those connections across cultures. And like you say, give them an opportunity to maybe reach out and connect with people they wouldn't otherwise do. So fantastic, great work.
Yeah. And then at the end of the first day, it was really fun because they're doing a virtual tour, right? They're connecting with people through the Visit Hiroshima Facebook page.
Yeah.
But they had some people real time watching what they're doing and following them around and then introducing themselves at the end. These two guys
Wow.
were from Brazil and shaking their hands and saying, "You guys did a good job and keep it up," So they had that online validation, but also the in-person one as well.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It must have been a great experience for them.
Oh, I hope so. It looked like all the students really got a lot out of it. Now the one that you're doing in March, can you tell us about that?
Yep. So this is a sort of leadership camp based on sustainability and by Atlantic Pacific. As you can see, that's actually a UK-based NPO, and they provide something called a lifeboat in a box. And they are working with Kamaishi, little town in Iwate Prefecture, that was absolutely devastated by the tsunami back in 2011. And the idea is that, the lifeboat in a box provides all the equipment and the training necessary for the locals to run themselves, so that if there is a disaster like that again, there are people with the training and the equipment necessary to go and rescue and help. But they also run these amazing camps. So this is for I think it's sort of junior high up to university student age. They've got a couple of different age groups there. And as you can see, there are different sort of elements to it, looking at ocean plastic and how that could be repurposed, reused, recycled. So they've got design thinking workshops, they've got water safety workshops, and then I'm going to be looking at sort of ethical leadership and how you bring sustainability into leadership. So really, really looking forward to that program. So it's up in Kamaishi itself for I think it's 3 days in total. So yeah, I'll be able to tell you more about that next month after we've actually been there. But it's really wonderful to see it happening again after COVID, because of course that put a stop to things for a little while.
Yeah, that looks fantastic. And there's about sustainable seafood and
Yep.
ocean plastics. There's lots of sustainability and SDGs led training, as well as just a way to build confidence
Yep.
and leadership amongst our future leaders, right?
Yes. And again, it's that mix of kind of local and international participants as well. And they're working with, as well as the, people like me coming in from outside, they're also working with the local communities and the fishermen and stuff there to understand their challenges related to sustainability and keeping the industry going and adapting it to future needs and so on. So it should provide so many different insights and learnings for them, and also a really nice thing for the community to have going on as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Let's switch gears and talk about hotels.
Ooh.
Because you were mentioning about preparedness, right, for
Yes.
emergency disasters. Now, when I went up to Fukushima recently, I stayed at a hotel in Tokyo, the Mitsui Gardens, and I was really impressed on many levels. But in terms of disaster preparedness, they do this interesting thing where they have a badge that you can put on the door in the case of an emergency to say, "I'm safe, I'm okay, you don't need to check on us." And they had other great initiatives, but this was something unique that I haven't seen yet. And it's something that I've been talking in my sustainable tourism classes with my online students is, how do we prepare visitors to handle emergencies?
That's
How
so
do we
true.
get that information to them? They're in a new country. They're not familiar with the local
Yeah.
standards, right? And so this was nice to see this example.
That's really great. And actually that kind of, I saw somebody, well, a lot of people, because it's, recently been the anniversary of the triple disaster in Tohoku, a lot of people have been posting their memories and stories of that time. And one guy, an American guy actually, who has lived here for a long time, so he was able to communicate when it happened and sort of understand what he needed to do. But he described his experience of kind of had to get off the train when it stopped, and all the announcements in Japanese, nobody knew what was going on. And this sort of couple coming up to him who were just visiting Japan saying, "What's going on? We can't understand anything. We don't know what to do." So yeah, it's really good to see that, you know, some hotels are taking that initiative to think about that, right? Because if you want to attract lots of people from outside the country to come here who don't have any experience of this, can't necessarily speak the language, then, you know, we do need to think about their needs as well.
Absolutely. And if we're talking about inviting more and more now that the borders are open,
Yeah.
this is the responsible thing to do. Definitely, any
Mm.
hotel should be thinking about it. And then for yourself as a resident, emergency preparedness was another thing I was thinking about in Fukushima.
Mm.
Anywhere you visit where they've overcome horrible disasters like this. And one of the museums in Tomioka, an area where people had to leave their houses
Mm.
really fast and couldn't go back for ages because
Yeah.
of radiation problems, they had a sample of things that they recommended everybody in Tomioka keep in their house for
Mm.
future emergency. And so I did a short video of this on my
Yeah.
YouTube, and I was like, how many of these things do you guys have,
Mm.
and how prepared are you for an emergency? And loads of people said they have that bag which they
Yeah.
keep emergency supplies,
Mhm.
dried food, water, that kind of stuff in
Yeah.
one section of their house. And I was like, I don't do that. I need to do that, right? Like, so
We
it's always good to think ahead.
we have it, but we just realized the other day that we just replaced the food. Usually we use the anniversary of the disaster to as a kind of a reminder that we need to check the bag and replace the food that's in there. But also the clothes, because the kids are growing. You know, my son, the stuff that's in there now, he's 7, and I think the clothes that are in there now wouldn't fit him at all. So you kind of do need to think about this as well from a,
Yeah. Oh,
you know,
I didn't even
family
think about
perspective.
clothes. That's such a
Yeah.
good idea. Clothes and shoes, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was another thing in Tomioka. A lot of people left in their house slippers. They didn't
Yeah.
even have one pair of shoes, right?
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
hard to think. The most important is saving yourself, right?
Yes.
Getting yourself out
Absolutely.
of danger.
Yeah.
But if you have something prepared and ready, that's
Mm.
certainly very
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
Now, another thing at Mitsui Gardens, which I was very impressed about, was about the water.
Ah.
Now, one of the few places I have seen in Japan that have the can water
Yep.
from Kirin. Thank you, Kirin. Thank you, Mitsui Gardens, because this is not the norm in Japan yet.
No.
And you had another great example at the Hilton about water.
Yes. Yeah. So we were at Hilton Tokyo Bay last week, and they have completely done away with all the PET bottles, no glass bottles or anything. In every room now, they have these kind of insulated water jugs. And every floor has its refill station, and they've got this little sign in the room there that you can see that shows you where you can go and refill. And they said they've had a really good response from you know, from their guests. No pushback or anything. They had to educate, so they, as soon as you walk into the hotel through the at the main entrance there, they've got a big screen with a video explaining, you know, how this works, why they're doing it. They've got you know, a big sort of poster there about water and conservation and so on, so people see it as they walk in, so it's not a shock when they get to the room and go, well, where's my bottle of water? But the manager was telling us that they've saved in 1 year they've saved over 200,000 PET bottles of water, which is phenomenal. And he said that sort of money cost as well, a saving of about 6 million yen for them. I mean, obviously there was some initial investment in the, you know, the water coolers and the jugs and so on, but you know, over time, that, he said, it made perfect business sense as well. So it's really good to see that there are places beginning to think about this now, and I think that's an excellent example of how it can be done.
Absolutely. And something I always ask about when I check into a hotel, is there somewhere I can refill my water
Yeah.
bottle?
Mhm.
And so when I did that at Mitsui, he's like, yeah, we have cans of water in the fridge. You can refill there. How's that? And I was like, yes, thank you. I almost cried, because I've been told so many times, oh, just fill up
Yeah.
in the toilet sink. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's just not what I want to hear. I want to hear
I am happy to do that
higher
and
level,
take the thing, but
Now you had another great initiative at the Hilton about food waste. Can you
yeah.
tell us about that?
Yeah, so the manager there, Marcus Koch, is really passionate actually about sustainability. And at the beginning of COVID, they'd been talking as a group at Hilton about food waste and how could they cut that. And so they've installed this Winnow system, which is a UK-based company that uses AI, and you can see there the sort of the waste bin, and above it the screen, so that the bin itself is sat on a kind of a pad that weighs it. And there's a camera on that sort of box you can see on the wall there. So in the first week that they're using it, they have to kind of train it. So they'll put something in, say, you know, after they're clearing away the breakfast buffet, for example, they'll put in a bread roll and the camera looks at it and they say bread roll. So they put that in and it learns that's what that is, and banana and so on. And then after they've done that with the items that they're using, then once it recognizes them, it can measure exactly how much of each of those items is going in. And very, very accurately, you know, it's over, I think sort of over 90% accuracy on what it recognizes and the weight that it's looking at. And then, of course, they worked with the whole, the kitchen staff as well, with the chefs, to think about when they're planning the menus, you know, what are they using? How much do they need of this, really? And they really thought about the flow of people through the restaurants at sort of different times of the day and how much needs to be prepared and go out to. They really, really looked at it holistically, not just sort of what goes into the waste there. But they found, I mean, the article there, Winnow, that was not long after they installed it, and that was sort of 30% reduction. When we were there last week, he said they're up to 80% reduction on food loss, which is, you know, phenomenal. And he said a lot of sort of hotels and other restaurants and stuff, when he's spoken to them about it, they said, oh yes, but it costs money at sort of, you know, $500 a month or whatever for this system. And he said, yes, but we've you know, recouped more than that in, you know, the waste reduction. You know, the savings from that are enormous. So again, it just makes good business sense, and it's a really brilliant way to reduce your environmental impact and the food waste.
Absolutely. So it's great branding, and
Yeah.
it saves you money. And like the chef who is in the video, he was talking about, it feels like the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, we were having so much waste. Now we're
Yeah.
documenting how much waste, we're weighing it. So then we're discussing it. We're talking about how much we're ordering. Like,
Exactly.
it's improved the whole efficiency of the operations, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think it really, it's a whole shift in mindset, right? Because they're not just going, okay, that's not being used, gomph. They don't think about how much is wasting. There's no visibility on that. And so no kind of maybe emotional connection to it. And I think, you know, as you were saying, you really think about it when you're putting something into the waste bin now and it's telling you you're throwing away this, and you're like, oh, okay, that's more than yesterday or something. You're really going to think very hard about actually, you know, what could we do differently with this? Could we reuse this in a different dish? Does it need to be thrown away? Or, you know, so I think it's a big shift in attitude,
Yeah.
which changes behaviors.
And then also, if they could find a farmer or a compost company to work with and have all that food waste reused
Yeah.
into very high quality dirt, there's
Yeah.
another, like, you could have zero waste because we're reusing any of our scraps, right?
Yeah.
That would be an added value.
Exactly. That would be the next step. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, wonderful. I also wanted to give a shout out to a really great company. I think I've mentioned them before. Spingle Move. They're a
Mhm.
made-in-Hiroshima shoe brand, and they just now, their new season launch is upcycled denim shoes. And Spingle has some great initiatives already because they're made in Japan. They're made in Hiroshima. We don't have to worry about labor standards,
Mm.
the quality of life for workers, right? We've already got that covered by
Mhm.
being made in Japan, made in Hiroshima.
Yeah.
Now they're upcycling waste material from the denim industry, which is in Hiroshima, in Okayama. Fantastic. And then Spingle has a great initiative. If you want to repair your shoes, you
Hmm.
send it back, they'll fix it. You can have shoes for life. Isn't
That's
that an
brilliant.
awesome
That is
initiative, right?
brilliant. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was really happy to see that. If you're on their newsletter, you get these early pre-release order opportunities. Plus, they have larger sizes. So I always have big feet, really big problem buying shoes in Japan. No problem with Spingle, very comfortable shoes. And by the way, Tove and I, we don't get paid for all these recommendations. Like, we just love, we're big fans of all
Yeah.
these great initiatives, right?
Absolutely. And I think good news should be shared, right? Because if it can encourage others to then make changes to the way they're making things or providing services, then that's helping all of us. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Another great company I came across recently, I interviewed Keena Jackson this month, and she's an amazing entrepreneur involved in a variety of projects in Osaka, as well as a translator interpreter, and helping with, you introduced her
So I don't know her directly, but we have
from
connections through the
BCCJ, right?
BCCA. Yeah. So
Yeah. And
really,
so she was talking
yeah,
about diversity and inclusion and
yeah.
mental health in a
Mm.
BCCJ. So then I interviewed her because of you. Thanks, Tova. And then
Welcome.
she was doing this great initiative, this new startup called Vegan Osaka. And they're doing handmade, plant-based comfort foods, pizzas, a lot of alternative meats. And
Mhm.
so I just got my first order, did a short video on my YouTube channel,
Yeah.
unboxing all the goodies. And then I had to tell people as well, don't worry, I do eat healthy. This is just sometimes, right? But it's just great to have
Yeah.
these options, really
Yes.
tasty, very
Mm.
satisfying when you just feel like something quick and satisfying, right?
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
so nice to have an online shop now.
Yep. I will go and look for that. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, let's keep moving. We've got a lot more.
Mhm.
What should we talk about next? Let me see. I mentioned that I was in Fukushima,
Yeah.
and I was so impressed by all the innovation and community and entrepreneurship there,
Mm.
especially in this one area. It's in Minamisoma, so it's really near Odaka Station. And there's a lot of people who stayed there who run a ryokan, Futabaya Ryokan, and that was a really like important community meeting space. They were doing radiation monitoring there from the
Mm.
beginning. I've published an article on Medium about my experience. I'll do a video soon on my YouTube channel about some of the places that we went to and all the inspiration that we had.
Mhm.
Just so many great insights there. But I was really impressed by this area called Pioneer Village as well, which was in Odaka.
Mm.
And it was started by an entrepreneur named Wada. And he has strong ties to the area. And he has a plan to start 100 new entrepreneur businesses in the
Wow.
area to help revitalize and reinvigorate that
Mm.
area. And he's got 25 so far. And we visited one of them, and it was a sake brewery who run by a young guy in a remodeled old beautiful Japanese house. And he's combining hops and sake, so
Hmm.
it's much lighter. It's almost like a craft beer sake taste.
Ooh.
And that was really fun. At the Pioneer Village itself, they
Mhm.
had a glass making workshop. They talked about all the different initiatives that they're helping get started. And it really struck me because I've been to rural areas all over Japan,
Mm.
but this area, there's so much focus on supporting people who want to start something new,
Yeah.
that this would be such a good chance for someone who's thinking about starting a new business to
Mhm.
go meet these people and have that opportunity to be a big fish in a little pond. And
Mm.
then there's so much international attention on
Mm.
anybody who's starting something new in Fukushima as they're
Yeah.
rebuilding.
Mhm.
There's so many empty lots everywhere because a lot of the earthquake damaged things were destroyed.
Yeah.
So when you do build something new, it's noticed, it's
Mhm.
appreciated so much. And then you have all these amazing people who are doing great things there, and they can connect you to the right people.
Yeah.
So that was really exciting to see.
That's really positive to hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Now, let's talk. We talked about your consulting. We talked about the Hilton.
So maybe LIXIL,
LIXIL. Yes.
thinking of sort of interesting new thinking. So we met friend of ours from LIXIL a couple of days ago. And he was telling us about this new product that they're launching, which is kind of, as you can see, it's a material, but it uses plastic waste and waste wood. And he said they can use basically any plastic waste, ocean plastic, crisp packets, the kind of stuff that normally can't be recycled. Or when buildings are pulled down and you've got mixed materials that, again, that are really hard to separate and reuse, and they're usually just landfill. They can use that kind of material for this. And the idea is that it's a replacement for concrete. So at the moment, the first product they've got out there are the paving tiles. And they're planning to introduce others as well. It's just been launched in January this year. But the idea is that, if we can get away from, using concrete, obviously that's a really good sort of move we can make. But also it's a way of reusing waste in a way that makes it useful again. And he was saying also, because of the sort of the plastic element in it, so if a part of it is cracked, normally with concrete paving stones, if part of it's cracked, the whole thing has to be replaced, the whole stone. But with these, you can actually just sort of use heat to remold and melt it and reseal. So it's sort of got a lot of durability benefits as well. So I'm really excited to see, what is going on in the construction industry, because that's somewhere where there's a lot of waste, there's a lot of scope for improvement. He was also talking about a lot of the work LIXIL is doing, because they create things like, bathroom units, toilets, windows, doors, all these kind of materials, and they provide those to a lot of construction companies and house builders. So they're really working with them now to try and encourage them to use more insulation, to encourage them to use, more efficient windows, so that we've got energy efficiency in buildings, which at the moment here generally is pretty low. So therefore the heating costs in the winter, the cooling costs in the summer are much, much higher than they need to be. And of course, producing a lot more pollution than we need to have. So if buildings could be a lot more efficient, so he's trying to encourage them when they're talking to customers about, say, replacing windows and things, rather than just going with the same, a new version of what they had before, actually thinking about what are all the benefits of using sort of windows that are much more energy efficient, that are actually going to keep your house much cooler or warmer, depending on the season. So it's really encouraging to hear that the makers are really working with their suppliers, who are then working with their customers as well, to change the industry.
Yeah, that's so important. Like, we need to make sure it doesn't give them the thinking that they can just keep making plastic
Right.
because they're reusing some of it,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
there's that danger. But when you
Yep.
have companies that are looking at all the waste and they know about the waste problem,
Mhm.
even if they stop making new plastic right now, we still have a big waste issue to deal
Yeah.
with. So as long as they're working on both sides of the
Yep.
problem, that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
We have some of these upcycled plastic and wood mixed on our decking.
Okay.
We had all wood decking, and it
Mhm.
rotted away within 5
Mhm.
years, and we're like, oh, it's a bit expensive every 5 years. I
Yeah.
know it's going back to nature, but it's a bit going back to nature too fast,
Yep.
So we were happy to make use of this
Mm.
upcycled plastic, and some people don't like it, but if you think about, like you said, it can
Mhm.
be remolded, it can be reused over and over again.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a really good solution for
Right.
things you want to use for a long time, right?
Exactly, exactly. The lifespan is very, very different. To say, we've had the experience as well with the wood decking not lasting very long, and also, where does that wood come from? If they're using new wood for that, and it's contributing to deforestation, or worse, coming in from abroad with more of a carbon footprint, then that's a big factor as well. So if we've got locally available materials that would otherwise be waste, I think that's a good option.
Yeah. Now, you had an interesting book. We've got just a few minutes
Yeah.
left. Do you want to introduce that?
Yep. So the book we're looking at is Invisible Women, Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. So I just started reading this yesterday as a recommendation from my friend Heather. And even just a few pages in, I would say everybody needs to read this book. It's incredible. I mean, obviously, we've just had International Women's Day, and we're in that month still. But this is something we should be thinking about all the time. But it's really, really enlightening just to look at all the ways that throughout the recorded history of humankind, everything has been seen from the male perspective, and everything. And she talks about the silences, the gaps in data that we just don't have data for women, and it's very, very different, and it affects things like the way products are designed, right? So the size of your phone screen, for example, is designed for the average male hand. Symptoms that doctors are taught to recognize for different issues are often based on the symptoms that men present. They might be quite different, like heart attacks, for example. The symptoms for men and women can be very, very different. So a lot of heart attacks in women can go undiagnosed until it's too late, because the doctors aren't recognizing the symptoms quickly enough. And things like doses of medication, and the way services work, the way seatbelts and things are designed in cars and airbags. All of these things, which actually, some of them are just little irritations, like, a shelf height might be too high for the average height of woman or something like this. I mean, it's annoying, but it's not going to be a major issue. But some of these things are actually affecting survival, affecting, everyday quality of life. And those kind of things are really ones that we need to recognize and address. So this book is, like I said, I'm just a little way into it, but already it's just got me really, really thinking. So I think anyone, whether you're working in the service industry or, making products, or just at home, and the conversations we're having with our friends and family, this is a really, really enlightening read. So highly
Yeah.
recommended.
Awesome. And that reminds me, like, going back to preparedness for disaster.
Yes.
Some women in the Twitter
Mm.
feed were saying, of course, don't forget your feminine hygiene products.
Mm,
That's often overlooked, but something you'd necessarily
absolutely.
need if you're
Yeah.
in a shelter, right?
Yeah.
And then,
Exactly.
in terms of gender equality, and a funny, on a lighter note, I follow Gaijin Mommy. She is so talented on Twitter. She makes these little videos, and this,
Mhm.
Melanie Brock would appreciate this. An entire manel, a whole group of men talking about women's issues, and
Yeah.
it was in the news. And so she makes these funny short videos from Lego, usually, or with speech bubbles,
Yeah.
and definitely the lighter side of these more serious issues.
Yeah.
So definitely check out Gaijin Mommy. She's a talented
That looks
lady.
fun. And I mean, we need the lighter side as well to get
We
people's attention
do.
sometimes, right? And
Well,
to
sense of
open up.
humor is part of resilience, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we need that as well.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, that is our 30 minutes. Thank you so much, Tova. Thank you, everybody, for
Welcome.
joining. And see you again next month with more short takes, right?
Brilliant. Yep. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great day, everyone.